of the Select Committee on Health and Social Services in the National Council of Provinces. I want you to relax, take a deep breath. When you've been stressed out, take a sip of water. And I'm glad that you are smiling. Enjoy this interview with us. I will hand over to the chairperson in the committee room to introduce herself and the rest of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. You're welcome, Mr. Mihlali Pedro Mzileni. You must relax, Baba. Get relax, wa. It's just an interview. Yeah, just an interview. 1 + 1, 2. 2 + 2 is 4. Plus 20 is 24. Minus 24 is 0. So you must relax. My name is Nonhlanhla Ncobendaba. I'm the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. I'm co-chairing this subcommittee with the Honorable Chair, who was just welcoming you now. You are welcome. Feel free. Umamelisisa ama-question ngoba ukuhleka abantu le ngaphandle uma ukhuluma into zakho. So that's why we kept reassuring you, ukuthi just relax. Your mic must be on. Switch you off. As soon as you start to introduce mic yakho uyekeli on. Honorable Masiko.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you for the maths literacy class that you have just taken us through. A very good evening to you, Mr. Mzileni. My name is Fikile Masiko. I am a member of this subcommittee. You are welcome and the very best for your interview.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, Mr. Mzileni. My name is Otto Malika. I'm a member of the subcommittee. You are welcome and good luck for the interviews.
Thanks to the chairpersons. My name is Louis Olompiti, and I'm a member of this committee. Wishing you well.
Enkosi kosihlalo bobabini molo nawe mhlekazi kumbulelo bharha lilungu lale committee enkosi kakhulu.
Thank you very much, chairpersons, and good evening, Mr. Mzileni. My name is Telisom Gweba, the member of this committee. You are welcome and all the best.
Reperile Mr. Mzileni, Vitoni Brenda Matebula, ni member of this subcommittee.
Good evening, Mr. Mzileni. My name is Buitumelo Joyce Maluleke, member of this subcommittee, and I wish you well in this interview.
Honorable Ndongeni.
Inkosi sihlalo, bosihlalo. Mnumzana Mzileni, ndiyabulisa. Igama lami ndinguNokuzola kaNdongeni. Ndilapha kule committee. Ndikunqwenelela okuhle, uphendule kahle, yeka uqina, khulula. Vuma ngoku. Khulula amagxa, suqina ngoba uzawungeva. Ndiyabulela.
Hayi makahlule wena Ndongeni uzabe uhlolile impela. Simkhululile kakhulu. Honorable Natasha. Natasha. Over to you, Chair. Chairperson? Thank you very much, honorable members. Mr. Mzileni, you are welcome. We have already assured you that you must just relax. As in, i-mic yakho ilinganise nawo, ibeke ngale ndlela leyo wena i-adjuste, ibeke ukuthi yeah, ngendlela ozoba comfortable ngayo. Ungasondeli kuye kakhulu ngaso, because bathi mawusondela kanjalo yenza i-echo bese kuzwakala. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, thank you very much. Mr. Zeleni, can you briefly tell the panel about yourself? And then also, can you share with us your knowledge about the agency and also why you are interested to serve the young people of South Africa as a board member of the NYDA? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening to you and also to the rest of the panel. I was born in Zwelitsha, Eqonce, Buffalo City region, Eastern Cape 29 years ago, and that is where I grew up, and that is where I also completed my basic education schooling level. I am a product of a family of men and women who are black teachers and were highly committed in black education. After schooling, I went to Nelson Mandela University, where I completed there a junior degree, an honors degree, a master's degree, and then yesterday I submitted my PhD. During my studies, I also participated in the student movement, where we fought against the whiteness and patriarchization of higher education. We also dismantled the apartheid labor system that sought to make security guards and catering officers as people who are junior and forever outsourced and oppressed. They were insourced ultimately. And I served all the structures of the student movement up to being the SRC president and also up in the upper structures of the student youth movement. When I graduated from the student movement, I moved into senior management of the university, serving in various committees like council, senate, the procurement committee, amongst others. I also got appointed as a senior manager in the vice chancellor's office, dean of students. And because of the productive work that I've been doing in that space, I also got appointed now as a lecturer in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, where I don't only do teaching, but I also develop courses. I supervise students to also complete their honors, master's qualifications, amongst others. Some of them passed with distinctions last year, and I have 2 more that are submitting this December. From the productive work I've done at that level, I've also been commissioned by the Standard Bank Group and the Department of Education and Training to do a feasibility study on free education. That study was conducted in Brazil. We returned the report, and I think the current model that they are using now to roll out free education is the one that came from that report. Also got appointed by the government of China on their rural redevelopment strategy, that where we worked as 40 young researchers from 15 countries. Some of them couldn't speak English, but we made it work. And we submitted that report in the provincial government of Guangzhou and the mayor of Jinghua in China. Now I've been invited also, because of that work I've been doing, by the SABC, Newsroom Africa, Mail and Guardian, many other publications, regionally and nationally in the country and internationally, to offer expert commentary on various issues facing young people and students and so on. My research study around the PhD was around youth development themes, student livelihoods, and also the transformation of higher education, on how can we link it and make it a productive resource for young people to streamline into the labor market. Now, why did I apply? I think the time, the space, and the context has now come for us now to begin interacting with empirical evidence when it comes to understanding and comprehending the challenges facing young people, such as unemployment, because clearly all the tools that we've been using in the past 20 years have not worked comprehensively, and that is why the rate of unemployment amongst young people keeps on increasing. So it means that the tools that we've been applying over the past few years have not worked comprehensively, and also we must also be impatient with people who are going to come and repeat those tools that have not worked. Basically, people who will come and reinvent the wheel, recycle old ideas that have not worked. We now need a new language, a new set of ideas that are now going to be put on the table based on empirical evidence. And having been a person who works with young people for a living on a daily basis, who works with research and having done it at the highest level, I believe that I do have that skill with me to not only offer the NYDA in terms of my own credibility as an activist, but also as intellectual rigor based on the qualifications that I've acquired during the process of infusing my activism, advocacy with the technical skills that are required at this level. So to understand issues of unemployment, we now need to put the evidence on the table, which is that for the past 40 years, not even 20 years, for the past 40 years, the country has deindustrialized. The manufacturing sector, we've watched it collapse. And that is why there's a high rate of unemployment in the country. And therefore, if we are going to articulate now strategies moving ahead, we now need to put evidence on the table. And that is why the Sith administration has put the ball on the trade and industry department and reconfigured it to now include the section on competition. Because the mandate there now is to produce young people using the advocacy work of the NYTA, produce young people who are going to tap into the industrial sector, because those are job-absorbing sectors. If you want to talk about job-absorbing sectors, not only in South Africa, but across the globe, it is a manufacturing and an industrial sector that is able to absorb such young people. Therefore, if we are going to articulate the work of the board moving ahead, it needs to be collaborative with various stakeholders and entities and seek to create these youth incubators and innovation hubs that are going to create an ecosystem where everyone comes under the same basket, where young people can access opportunities quicker, especially those who have business plans, and especially those who also are doing business that is labor intensive. You get me? But in this country, as my last point now as I wrap up, but in this country, the notion of innovation, it's viewed as if it's a Gauteng phenomenon. Because the innovation hubs and youth incubators that I'm talking about, there's one in Midrand, there's one in Pretoria. So innovation is regarded as a Gauteng phenomenon, a Cape Town phenomenon, and a Durban phenomenon. Now what I introduced to the board is how then do we spatially deconstruct and deconcentrate innovation hubs away from the center, which is the urbanized provinces, into the rural provinces where I come from. Because it is in those regions where the rate of unemployment is felt the most. Because there's no private sector that is going to employ young people in these rural provinces where I come from. Because there, if you don't have a job in the government, the prospects of you getting employment are very low. So we now need to decentralize these youth hubs, these innovation parks that I'm referring to, center them in the 53 regions across the country, and set a target for the next 3 years as the board that we're going to set up these youth hubs, collaborate with rural municipalities, entities and role players in these rural provinces, make these rural provinces also articulate these hubs according to the priorities of their provincial development plans. Because I'm sure the priorities of KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape are different. For instance, in the Eastern Cape, we have a long ocean belt where the maritime industrial sector can be triggered from, including tourism, plus an undertapped agricultural sector. Those industries, young people are underrepresented. So you need an innovation hub and a youth incubator there, collaborated with these entities to anchor young people into those opportunities and de-specialize innovation as if it's a phenomenon only of Gauteng. So what I bring to the board is this high credibility of interpreting this evidence information, new ideas to be brought to the table, new strategies that we can work with, to make sure that the NYTA enjoys the confidence of young people all over the country from all walks of life.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bacha.
No, thank you, Chairperson. And thank you for recognizing me first, because I think that the opening remarks that were given kind of trigger further questions of engagement that we need to embark on. I hear what you're putting forward. And firstly, I was thinking that where you are currently working is the best place for you to be, because I thought you were kind of contributing meaningfully to those that are under your supervision. But as you went on, I felt that there could be a role for you to assist us in what we are trying to do. Now, what I want to get from you is a sense to the effect that if you were to be appointed as a board member, in a country where there's more than 70% of youth unemployment, both rural and urban, what are the key things that you can count that one, this is what I will do, two, this, thirdly, this, and fourthly, this, which would kind of give a sense to all of us sitting here that probably you are one of the people that we are looking for to assist us in unlocking the kind of job opportunities of young people in the country. I hope I'm making sense, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Honorable Bacha, for that question. What I can say, as I was articulating earlier on, that the reason why we have a high rate of unemployment in this country is because the manufacturing and industrial sector has been collapsing over the past 40 years. That is a labor-intensive industry, you know, because that industry is able to absorb young people, both those who came to higher education institutions, plus those who did not get given the opportunity to come to university. If you look across the world, all countries that have full employment, they have two major pillars about their economies. It's either they are industrial economies, or in the event where they've deindustrialized, they have moved into the knowledge economy, where they've now industrialized under the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution. Whereas for Africa, when it deindustrialized, it pulled back to supplying raw material to the economy. And that is why, therefore, as we are producing these graduates, they're unable to absorb in the market because there's no industrial sector for them to have a safe landing. Now what we need to do, the NYDA Act empowers the board in terms of what it must do under this crisis. If you trace the epistemic roots of the NYDA Act, it empowers the board with advocacy work and also youth enterprise support work. Where I want to emphasize, Chair, is on the advocacy work. Because with the advocacy work, what we could do there's potential to collaborate. And I'm using the word collaborating deliberately. I don't like the word partnership, because partnership is flimsy and is task-orientated. Rather, collaboration is more strategic and anchored on developing a sustainability matrix on how you make these strategies that are going to derive sustainable over a period of time. So on the advocacy work, there are young people who are designing clothes, who are designing shoes, who are designing this beret I'm wearing, a lady from Motherwell, one Tunge Lion. Such companies, if they can be empowered, right, through these collaborations, because there's only so much that the NYDA budget can do. Therefore, you need to rope in, through these incubators I'm talking about, various departments, various social entrepreneurs, various entities. What youth work are they doing? What budgets do they have that are prioritizing young people? And how then can we categorize businesses of young people, right? Yes, there are those who are pursuing art, spaza shops, and so on, but then there are also those who are pursuing businesses that are industrial and labor intensive in nature, right? So supporting such businesses is what is going to unlock the work that we do. And this is not something foreign or difficult to do, Chair, because already in the country, we do have a manufacturing and industrial capacity. If you look at the 1992 state-owned enterprise that was established called Denel. Denel is a military company that offers weapons, uniform, and also these converters of the military state, including uniforms. They manufacture them in-house, and then they supply them to the African continent and other markets across the globe. Now, if Denel is able to manufacture and have a manufacturing plant of these weapons, high-tech technology, it means, therefore, we should experiment with trying to have a situation where instead of basic education buying maybe projectors from Lenovo or from Microsoft at a high price, you could ask Denel to say, Denel, over the next 3 or 6 months, can you build 10, 20, or 500 projectors for these schools in Mpumalanga and see where that will take us? So industrialization begins in those little capacity that you have, and you build it from within, you know? So it's as if sometimes we've never been to exile, where we saw in the post-colonial government of Tanzania, Julius Nyerere realized that with his citizens, that there's no one who's going to come develop Tanzania. They need to use agriculture for self-reliance purposes, the strategy of Ujama. We need to take lessons from that. If we want to industrialize our own country, we need to tap into our own capacity that we already have and grow from there. That is how you grow a country. No one is going to come develop South Africa for you. So the NYDA Act empowers the board to have that agency arm and also the youth enterprise support arm to go out there and find these entities, create these incubators, despecialize them to be in rural provinces where the majority of young people are found.
Yeah, Honorable Mgweba, Honorable Matebula, Honorable Mpiti, you don't want to ask? Okay, Honorable Mpiti, Masiko.
Honorable Natasha, if there's a sports chair.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you, Mr. Mzileni, with your response of how best we can assist our youth in terms of dealing with unemployment. But however, I just went through your CV, and one wish to question you if you can be able to give us the 5 main principles of governance, good governance, within the context of a democratic government and efficient public service.
Thank you, Chair. The principles of good governance are not only informed by the King Report, but they are also informed by the PFMA. The PFMA and the King Report breathe to each other coherently to produce these sets of 5 principles of good governance, which are transparency, accountability, being effective and efficient, using the rule of law, being transformative and sustainable in the work that you do with the resources of the public. If you trace the epistemic seeds of these documents, they first emerge from the 1989 World Bank report on structural measures that they were trying to drive in Latin America and the African continent, which is today called the Global South. That was translated by the democratic government in 1996 through the GEAR and Employment and Distribution Policy, called GEAR, where now the government seeks to generate its own revenue in order to drive the public service. And now that ultimately resulted in the PFMA, that then translated also to the construction of good governance principles on how to run a professional and efficient public service. If you look at the existing PFMAs of other countries in Southern Africa, like Zimbabwe, Botswana, they actually take lessons from the South African good governance model and its PFMA strategy. That was also translated into the NEPAD document, the new agenda for African growth, which was sponsored in the African Union by the former President Mbeki. Those are some of his brilliant legacies that he has left behind in terms of how the public sector must operate. Now, when we talk about the PFMA and good governance, these 2 strategies, they speak to the management of assets, liabilities of the institution or the entity that you are leading, the accounting principles, the ability to write coherent annual reports, to deliver to Parliament, to deliver to who you are supposed to report to, like the President. And what is important about doing those things properly at a high level with top quality is that you also grow the reputation of the entity. You also become a trustworthy entity that is easier to invest in, because they can see that your good governance and public finance management systems are in place. So you are able to be a trusted person with people's investments, you know. So it is important, therefore, that when we drive the NYDA Act as a board, we're able to pay attention to the fact that the credibility of the institution itself determines what are the dividends of leading it with good governance. And part of those dividends is having an organization that enjoys the confidence not only of the public, but also of the private sector and other investors, so that the policy priorities of the sector administration, they become easier to advance using the NYDA board. So good governance, yes, it is there, but there must be competences in place to productively translate it into something that will drive the NYDA so that it can become more impactful from an advocacy and also from a youth funding point of view. In my view, if you are able to pull those articulations together, you will have a credible board leading the NYDA with good governance.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Mzileni, if you are elected to be a board member, what can you do to groom young women in becoming entrepreneurs?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. You know, entrepreneurship, it's a skill that needs an investment in terms of time to inculcate it in the consciousness of a young person. And that is where the education system comes in. First question you need to ask is, how is our education system articulating the business acumen to produce young people, graduates from grade 12, with a consciousness for entrepreneurship? Because one of the mistakes we make with people who are looking at the education system from afar, for us who are inside the system, education is not only an instrument to transmit skills for you to be in the labor market. Education is also a socialization weapon. It culturizes you into a particular way of thinking. Are you with me? So that is why you'll find that young white boys who never went to school, how are they able to run the businesses of their family sustainably? It is because they were socialized into the acumen of being entrepreneurs from a very young age. That is why today you'll find that in the Free State, a 21-year-old farmer is killing farm workers there. Because that 21-year-old white farmer, he was socialized to see black people in the farm as animals, you know? So the articulation of our education system needs to anchor these skills at a very young age. And how do you do that? You strengthen teaching competencies and curriculum articulation in science, mathematics, and African languages. Why are these three subjects important? Because science, mathematics, and African languages, they equip a child with the skill to abstract their thinking, right? Because you see, with English is a very instrumental language. But when you speak isiXhosa asitoliko, there are some things in African languages that we cannot easily translate because our languages carry deeper philosophies that help us to interpret our reality. You understand? So African languages, science, mathematics, they need to be at the top of your priority. And the NYDA Act empowers the board to drive an advocacy work to interface directly with the Department of Basic Education, to say that what can be done now to strengthen science, mathematics, and African languages from a teaching and from a learning point of view, so that by the time a person gets to grade 12, they don't only go out thinking about looking for employment, but they also go out with a variety of skills, some of them being self-driven, to be entrepreneurs. You need that winning culture amongst young people. So those skills don't just grow from the sky. You have to do the labor, the difficult labor as a government to develop those skills step by step. And that is where we're going to come in as the board, from an advocacy point of view, to ensure that development of basic education plays that role. Lastly, post-matric, you have a higher education sector. You have colleges, you have universities. Yes, I understand the government, maybe it separated them for administrative or bureaucratic reasons. But in my view, the paradigm of basic education, higher education, and colleges, it needs to be one. They need to articulate one language amongst each other as far as the youth agenda is concerned, to grow entrepreneurs, you know. So the skill of entrepreneurship does not come out of a 4-day workshop. You need to invest in those skills at a very young age. You need to take time. You need a development plan in place. That Vision 2030 that was adopted in 2012 is some of the ways you develop entrepreneurial skills. And no one is going to do that for you. You need to be a self-reliant government that takes effort in investing in black education. Because if you look at our traditions as black people in this country, we've always taken pride in black schools producing top results in science and mathematics. I even remember my own mother. Whenever my school achieved top results in mathematics and science, she was always proud that we were able to beat the white schools in the urban areas. So black people have always loved their own institutions. They've always loved their own townships and rural areas. And quality education for me would be best articulated by producing top results in science, mathematics, and African languages in rural schools. That's an education system that works for me. That's an education system that is transformative. Not the current articulation of taking black kids to white schools and think that magically the transformation and skills that you need are going to be produced. No, they are going to be dehumanized in those schools. But if you invest in your own institutions, invest in black education, love black education, that is how you're going to produce the spirit of entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you so much for the responses that you've given thus far. You know, we always talk about, you know, we need to look at sectors that need to grow the economy and make space for young people. And so I want to move into the question around market linkages, particularly for sectors in our country that are going to essentially be the job-creating, job-producing sectors in the next 10 to 15 years. And I'm just interested from your side, should you be appointed to the board, what exactly would you do in terms of creating market linkages with sectors that are not necessarily booming at the moment, but might boom in the next 10, 15 years? Because as young people, our role is not only to lead young people, but is to lead the country. And so when we do speak about job creation and speak about a strong economy that can facilitate job creators and job seekers being able to flourish, we can't only just speak about young people, we speak for the country. And other older people who are looking to us as young people to have these ideas and formalize them. So I just want to hear out of interest, what is your take on those sectors that will boom in the next couple of years? But also, what is the plan to have those market linkages that link young people to them so that we can grow the economy? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Piti, for that question. Uh, Access to markets, it's one of the lacking models that deny young people from growing their businesses. You know, Honorable Mpitine, the importance of accessing the market is that it's going to help young people not only to open their businesses in January and then close them in December. Accessing markets helps businesses become sustainable for many years to come. And those are some of the challenges that as the NYT board we need to be seized with. Yes, we do provide grants to young people. We give a young person 5,000, 10,000 to start a business, which is a very small amount in my view, because with 10,000 you can't even open a law firm, you know. So we give them 5,000 and 10,000. They don't have any. There are no plans in place on how can we help them access the market, and that is why SMMEs have a high rate of closure after the first 12 to 24 months. So accessing markets now is what is needed so that the people that are on the margins, the people that are on the townships and the rural areas, they are able to create an asset base from their own businesses and continue to operate them for many years to come. Because you also need in place now an inheritance system amongst black people. Because what facilitates easy access into the business economy for white young people, it is because their elders have created assets in place for their younger people to inherit, which is they've created a sustainability matrix for those businesses. And where does that sustainability matrix come from? It comes from the access and the monopoly they have of the market. So we now need to build those assets. We now need to bring in the stockfields that are owned by our black women in the townships. We now need to begin articulating what is it exactly that is holding Treasury back from opening at least a few branches of the State Bank. Because the State Bank, what is it going to do? Because you see how our commercial banks are structured, when Honorable Mpitine, they are still structured in a traditional sense of providing cheap credit and grants to the industrial, energy, and the mining complex in this country. They don't care about people who have small businesses or those who are trying to start new businesses. Now, a state bank in place, a few branches, just to experiment for the first 2 to 3 years, how far is this thing going to take us? The state bank comes into that market, right, to provide such businesses with sustainable support. The NYDA Act empowers, again, the agency now to use the second leg of youth enterprise support, link it with Treasury, link it with the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition. I spoke earlier about why the Sith administration optimized the Department of Trade and Industry to include competition. It is for that reason. The mandate of Trade and Industry now is to break down the monopolies where the big companies are holding the market space. You need to break down those monopolies, open up the markets for young entrepreneurs to access the market. And that is the advocacy work as the board we now need to pay specific attention to that mandate given to the Department of Trade and Industry by this administration. How now do we begin to articulate access to markets for young people so that they can run their businesses for many years to come? You see, Somalians, when they arrived in this country in 2006, they didn't ask for anyone's permission. Somalians arrived, they analyzed the township. If you notice all of them, they have shops in corners of the township because they knew that for every adult coming out of a township house, let's make sure we capture them so that they don't go to Pick and Pay in town. Open spaza shops in each corner of the township so that when a person comes out and they need to do groceries, they find it feasible to access them next door because anyway, our people depend on social grants. They don't have funds. They cannot afford transport to the town every day. So Somalians did a feasibility study on how to create their own market and make their businesses sustainable. The 10 Somalians who opened businesses in my township in Zwelitsha, they've multiplied now. They are over 40. Because why? They managed to hold on to the market that they've created themselves. They didn't apologize. So we need now a breakthrough attitude that we need to empower our young people with. They don't need anyone's permission. They need to be supported sustainably so that they can break into the market and create it as a space, and trade and industry and competition must come in to regulate that area and protect these industries that young people are starting. That is how you're going to grow a business sector as a self-generating government that looks at young people not as objects to deliver, but as aged young people who just need support by the government. That's why the NDP articulates young people as agents of their own future. They are not waiting for parcels. They are not waiting for grants. They just need strategic support to continue being agents of their own future. That is how we are going to build an African country.
Honorable Masiko.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you, Mr. Mzileni, for your responses. Ayacho ngamaXhosa athi uyitye yonke. Wangashiyela nenye, but nonetheless, Mr. Mzileni, I want to tap into your vast knowledge on research and development. You know that generally there's a concern out there that seeks to say that there is a general inability to monitor, to evaluate, and to account accordingly on government's investment on young people. You know, the youth development interventions, we cannot tell currently the true effectiveness of these interventions that we are having. Now, in terms of your knowledge on research and development, how best do you propose that the NYDA can monitor and evaluate youth development across all government departments, across the private sector? Because you know that sometimes, you know, we always focus on what government is doing and we forget the private sector in terms of their responses to issues and challenges facing young people. And also in civil society, because you do have civil society organizations that are funded by government to do interventions on their behalf and address issues of young people. And I'm saying that so that we are able to say that the tools that we are having to monitor and evaluate these interventions are ensuring us that we can account on issues of like a return on investment. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Honorable Masiko, for that question. On the item of research and development, which is something that I wake up and do for a living every day. Firstly, because we are an NYDA board, the capacity needed to articulate our work in research terms, it can actually be an enterprise in itself, you know that. Because you do have many graduates who have masters and honors that are unemployed. So we could say, we have this research project that we're going to run maybe in Mpumalanga. How many graduates there have done masters and honors that can come in, meaning we create work for them, but also we're improving their research skills in the process. So in that way, you do not need to make research this impossible funding priority that is unaffordable, but rather what assets do you have in place already? Because DHET has produced so many graduates in qualifications where they are not receiving reception in the private sector. But such skills can be utilized productively. One of them, inviting them now to be part of the NYDA work on developing research and development. So a master's degree, it's a research degree. So a person who has completed a master's has a research competencies with them, but they're unable to be absorbed by the private sector. So we now need to go find those young people, interact with the University of Fort Hare, interact with the University of Limpopo, Mangosuthu University of Technology, Cape Peninsula University, all black universities. Because we must not make the mistake of taking public funds back to privileged institutions. They now need to go to black universities that are in the Bantustans, that are so underprivileged, where a graduate absolutely has no hope of getting any opportunity either to develop or to be trained or to get employment. So part of the research work that the NYDA has to do does not only depend on me as an individual. I can be a supervisor, but I need to see an influx of young people from black universities coming in to do productive work for the NYDA. And once that research report comes through, young people have pride that, the NYDA now is going to pursue this direction based on the research work that I have done. So everything that we do, it needs to be followed up by monitoring, evaluation, and research. So it can't end only at monitoring and evaluation just to audit and track who's corrupt and who's not. But evaluation must also be followed up by research. Why? Because that is where you are going to be able to identify future opportunities, so that when the next board comes through, it is able to take the baton from where we have left off and continue with the good work that we've been doing. So that each board, as we transition every 3 years, they feed evidence to each other, so that we don't reinvent the wheel. You don't come in and reinvent all the terms that we can see from our reports that we've said they don't work. You come in, you elevate the standard, right? Go into other sectors that we've recommended from the research work that we have done. So the beauty of research, Honorable Masiko, is that it empowers an institution to take efficient, intelligent, and relevant decisions. You are not going to waste resources when you have research because you're working with evidence. You know what works, you know what doesn't work. You know rhetoric, you know slogans. They don't work. We are sitting in a crisis now because we now need to put slogans aside. We need now to put old languages aside. New ideas must be on the table and they must be informed by empirical evidence.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Petro.
Yebo.
There's no other hand, ne? Says come 5 most or 6. Yeah, 6. Thank you very much, Mr. Petro. Chair, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me thank Mr. Zikeni for participating in this interview and also for his deliberations and the way he answered the questions. Do you have a question to the panel?
From my side, personally, it has been an honor to be shortlisted as part of the 40 out of 1,000 applications. So being here for me, it's really an honor that I didn't expect. It has been a pleasure. And I want to thank the committee for listening to me. I really appreciate it. Ndiyabulela, enkosi kakhulu.
Thank you very much and good luck in all your future plans. You are excused.
Do you think that one day we could address you as Prof. Mzileni? I look forward to that.
Mike? Thank you.
Yeah, we'll wait. Yeah. So, Mtele.
Chairperson, I think it would be best if I stood here, for the reason being then I can sign clearly to the candidates as well as be able to voice into the microphone clearly.
Yeah, no, I've agreed. What we're checking Shelly now.
They are waiting for you now. No?
Yeah.
You can talk.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening, Pretty. Um,
Wait, Chair, we are still testing
oh, oh,
with Shelly the positioning of the gentleman who is interpreting. Yeah, we're waiting for Shelly. She must confirm. Yeah.
Evening, Chairperson.
Yes, Shelly?
If the gentleman, I just want to check, is he going to stand like that? Or we need him to maybe sit if the candidate can see him?
Oh, mamela Shelly, ahlale kule situlo lesi siphatha uyambona nje ngoba thatha isitulo.
Yes, ma'am, because he's going to stand. I just need Bronwyn to please leave the so that we can prepare. Can FCC leave for now?
Eh?
I'm talking to the final control center, ma'am, if she can go to an advert rather. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, I just need, um, she will be fine like this. We'll cut to her, sorry for that. But can I please, control, get the white shot quickly? Yes. If she can see him, that will be fine. And I will request the control to please zoom in so that also members can see her. And as well, we need to prepare so that member can also understand. I am worried. Is the gentleman's microphone there, because when the lady is speaking, he needs to open the mic so that members can also understand what he is saying. And as well on broadcast, we will hear you. You need to switch on your mic there, sir, when she starts talking.
Yes, ma'am. Testing just to see if the microphone is audible.
It is audible. It is audible.
Thank you
We
very
are
much.
fine. And then the Sound and Vision needs to share this on the screens so that members can also see from the screens too. I think we will be ready, ma'am. Ms. Sephora, if you can please give us a countdown from FCC quickly.
Okay, Miss Monso, just hold on.
Yes, yes. Please tell Bronwyn to fade out this interview, this one.
We'll take the 45 seconds thing, ma'am, and then we'll come from there.
Okay, can she fade on to that 45 seconds thing then? We will count down, and Chairperson, we will count down. I'll count down to 3, and then from there I'll keep quiet. Just allow about 3 seconds and you can start, ma'am. Thanks. Mado, Bronwyn is not fading. I'm watching the live broadcast. Bronwyn is not fading. Hi, hi. Please stand by for countdown. Mado, please count down.
20, 20 seconds.
20 seconds to you, Chairperson.
20 seconds to the venue, it's 20 seconds from me. And the signs are kind healing our past, improving our lives. And 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Evening. Thank you, Chairperson. Good evening and welcome, Ms. Pretim Zobe, to this interview session. My name is Merensha Gillian, the Chairperson of the Select Committee in the National Council of Provinces for Health and Social Services. I want you to be very comfortable and relaxed. If you're a little bit nervous, drink a little bit of water. I will hand over to the chairperson in the committee room to introduce herself and the rest of the members of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Ms. Pritim Zobe, you're welcome. My name is Nontlantla Ndaba. I'm the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. I'm co-chairing this panel with the Honorable Chair, who was just welcoming you now. We wish you good luck and thank you for coming. Thank you very much. So I'm not sure. Can't you, Brown? Are you going to also interpret for us, because we want someone to interpret for us?